Welcome to Call the Nurse, life support for the stories that don't make it in the chart. Because not all wounds are visible and not all healing is clinical. I'm Mindie, a nurse, a mom and wife, and someone who's lived through pain, joy, and everything in between. Each week, I'll be sharing life experiences, not only from the front lines of nursing, but we'll dive into the raw and unfiltered moments of parenting and marriage, and also explore what it truly means to heal body, mind, and heart. So whether you're going through your own personal transformation or just need a place to feel understood, you've come to the right place. So take a deep breath. You're not alone. Let's talk about it. Let's call the nurse. Welcome back to Call the Nurse, your weekly dose of life support. My guest today is Jennifer Osler-Bolton. She's a mom, a widow, and now a wife again, and author of Always Kiss Me Goodbye. She knows firsthand about love and loss. They often live side by side. She lost her firefighter husband and found love again 3 years later. And she reminds us that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is say goodbye and still choose to love again. Welcome, Jen. I can't say Jennifer.
I know.
Jen.
I prefer Jen, but from my friends. So actually, that's how I introduce myself anyways.
Yeah. Jennifer Osler-Bolton.
It's so
because
formal.
of our book, you're the author. You're an author.
That is wild.
Yeah.
That is wild.
That is wild. But I don't know. I've always kind of known that about you. You're so creative and so just a good writer and speaker and freaking funny. Really funny.
I'm glad you think so.
Oh, I did. For those who may not know you, I've known you for several years.
A long time.
Yeah, a long time. I knew your husband, Ryan, not super well, but I always, remember when I would sing at church and he would comment on it. So that's what I do remember. And
you loved listening to you sing.
Oh, I love that. And you have two beautiful children. How old are they now?
22 and 20.
Jeez,
I know.
Wow. Like time just flies. I know
I don't
my
even know
daughter
how
is
it
19
happened.
now. Like
Wait,
you
19?
Yes. You had her in like Sunday school.
I was going to say,
she was a baby.
I still think of Haley as being 10.
Yeah.
She's
I know.
10.
Yeah. Me too.
19? Really?
I still try to make her seem like she's 10, but she's trying to tell me that she's an adult now.
I'm sure she appreciates it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You have been a very inspiring person. I feel like you have been through so much. And I know with having kids and going through tragedy, just even being a strong presence in their life. For those of you people that don't know you and what has gone on in your life, do you mind just taking us back to 2016?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 2016. I'll never forget this day. The moment that your world completely changed when you lost Ryan. Was it a phone call? I know I saw something on the news and I called Mahal, your best friend, like, please tell me this is a mistake.
Is that how you found out?
That is how I found out from the news.
I had no idea.
It was on the news. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people did. And I think my first thought obviously was, oh my gosh, I hope the kids, somebody's not watching the news. How old were they at the time?
11 and 12.
11
They were 11 and 12. I got a phone call because he was away. He was out of county. So yeah, I got a phone call. And the reason that the chief called me was because they didn't know where I worked and I was on my way to work and they needed to do exactly that. They needed to get a hold of me before I found out in
From
some
the
other
news.
way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and that was actually with my kids. It was the same thing. They were like, just leave the kids at school, let them finish their day.
Yeah. Yeah. Because nobody, I guess, is watching the news there.
And then as soon as they saw that it was like on social media and that type thing, that's when they told me, you got to go and get your kids because otherwise that's how they're going to find out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and he was a firefighter. How many years in the Ventura?
He had been with Ventura County Fire for 18 years, but he had been hired on as a firefighter for 10 years.
Yeah.
So, but he had worked from them from the time that he was 18 years old.
And you guys were like, I want to say high school sweethearts, but it's more like junior high, right? Was it? Or
No,
was
we were
it
high school?
It was
Our
high
sophomore
school.
year.
How
Yeah.
old? How old were you?
15.
15 years
15
old.
years old. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. 15, married at 20. Yeah.
Kids.
kids. We were babies.
Wow.
We were babies
And
playing house.
How old was he playing house? Well, you know, you had kids and everything. So how old was he when he passed away?
38.
38.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't necessarily fighting a fire.
No, he was up north in Santa Barbara County, and he was assigned to a water tender, which is a truck that takes water to the front lines of fire where they can't access fire easily or water easily.
Those light green trucks, right? Like the mint.
They can't. There's some.
Yeah.
There's depending on which
one
department they're using, but So he was a passenger in the water tender, and the passenger or the driver hit a roundabout and lost control of the vehicle, and it rolled several times and killed Ryan in the process. So he was on the fire, but not at the fire yet, on his way.
Who called you?
The chief.
And you knew him, right? I mean, you'd known him.
It was my first time ever speaking to him. It was my first time ever meeting him. Because, you don't really interact with the chief. You don't really see him. You hear about him and, that type of stuff. But no, that was my first time ever even speaking with the chief.
And I'm guessing probably the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Yeah. I adore him.
What do you remember about those first days, weeks after the tragedy?
It's interesting. The first couple weeks, this is what I usually tell people when someone has gone through a loss like this and such a public loss is there's so many people around.
Yeah.
And so the first 2 weeks, you don't really have a taste yet of what is actually going to be your life because everybody's there. Everybody's making sure you're okay. Everybody's checking
bringing
in.
meals and taking care of the kids. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't even really have a chance to settle in the shock for the first couple of weeks because you're just busy. You're busy with people. You're busy, the funeral planning and all that kind of stuff. But it was after all of that. And I remember the kids and I sitting in the house and it was just so quiet. And like everything just felt completely different. Like the air felt different. Our home felt different. And it was just, you're truly just like, well, like, what do we do now? Like what's next? And they were going to school the next day. It was just that for me, like those first couple weeks were so busy and so full. And I'm so grateful for that because I think that's what helped me to get through all of it. But it wasn't until weeks later when you actually felt just the
heaviness. I've heard that when, something tragic happens, that there's so much going on. It's really the later part when everybody goes back to their homes, everybody flies back and you're just kind of sitting there in this kind of empty space where there's really not much anyone can do. It's not like, your best friend's going to move in with you necessarily, although I know people did kind of come and help. Yeah. It seems like those would be, the hardest parts. Yeah.
It's just, it's when everybody else goes back to their normal lives and nothing about our life is normal anymore. And so then the other sides of that involve watching everybody go through their normal lives and you're still just trying to figure out how to adapt to this new life.
Yeah.
That
like
you
life
have.
keeps moving and yet you're still kind of, sitting there and then you're sitting there with your kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're feeling your own grief, right? You've mentioned that grief doesn't end. It evolves. How has your understanding of grief changed over time?
Well, so I'm 9 years out and I will still absolutely cry over it. Not necessarily over Ryan being gone or over the accident itself, but it's more of just you're just different afterwards. Like you're never the same after something like that. And so you kind of end up crying for what's been lost. Right. But for yourself, that piece of you that, I always say like even the way that I love my second husband, it's not as carefree as when I loved Ryan. Everything like my trauma's attached.
Yeah, do you
to
feel
it.
like more cautious or just
Definitely.
you're thinking, is when's the ball going to drop in a sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So it follows you into things that are even good and happy because that trauma and that loss it brings such a reality of life's fragility that you don't normally,
Yeah.
you wouldn't experience if you didn't have to walk through something like that. You
Bad
wouldn't know
things
it
really
existed.
can happen. Yeah, the unthinkable can actually happen.
Right. So that's an aspect of grief that, like, I think when people hear grief, they think, oh, like crying tears, so sad, you miss the person. But there's so much innocence before that trauma that I miss that part of it. I don't, sometimes I'm crying just because I don't like that I feel scared about things, or I don't like that I, have to check Life 360 and see where my husband is, to make sure he made it to work safely. And, you cry for those types of things. I'll cry for my kids who
I was
are
gonna say,
adults.
Yeah, they're adults, or maybe when your daughter gets married, or just different memories.
All different. Her first high school dance, I was a mess, because her dad wasn't there to see it. So the grief, it changes and evolves, but it doesn't ever actually, it doesn't leave you because it's changed you. It just becomes a part of you. You don't have to live in that sadness all the time. Like, I don't feel like I live in like this heaviness all the time, but when it's there, it's there.
Yeah.
And you can't run away from it.
Yeah. I've heard like these stages of grief that people talk about, like that it's kind of really a myth, that it's kind of like, it doesn't really work like that.
No, nothing about grief is linear or can be processed in stages. Because if that were the case, I'd be 9 years out and wondering, oh, I'm back at square one. I got to go through the stages again. And I don't think that that's fair to limit ourselves to, okay, well, now I've passed denials. Now I'm on to the next stage. And, because at some point, even now, I'm still like, I can't believe that's my life. Like, I can't believe that. And I do go through that. You'll look at it and be like, I can't believe I went through that. So the stages of grief, I feel like they're so limiting to someone because then it puts a pressure on us.
Yeah. What stage am I in now? Am I in denial? Am I supposed to be like,
And then if you do go back to anger at one point, or you do go back to, another stage at one point, it can put that sense of pressure on yourself to be like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way. When in reality, that's impossible.
Yeah. Doesn't seem realistic.
No.
You've lived a life with a firefighter for how many years? I mean, 25 years, and then ended up, meeting another firefighter. But before we kind of get into finding love again, do you feel like being part of a fire family really helped you when this happened?
Definitely. I will say Ventura County Fire was exceptional. It really showcased, the fire family. You hear about that, the fire family and the camaraderie and that type thing. And I know it's always been there, but there was something about, because it wasn't just my loss, it was their loss too.
Yes.
So many guys who had worked with Ryan, who had been on the hand crew with Ryan, who got hired with Ryan. So I think we all were kind of helping each other get through things. But they were phenomenal. They were truly, truly great. And they helped a lot because Ryan was so handy and he did so much. So if I needed something done on the house, like they were.
Yeah, I remember them coming up and putting up like Christmas lights, right?
Yeah.
Because did Ryan die in September of 2016? I thought so, because I remember my daughter was, that was her birthday month. But I remember seeing that they had put up, Christmas lights, and everything. And one of to this day, probably the most impactful memorial service funeral that I've ever. I mean, there's nothing like a firefighter service, and then you could just tell how loved he was and how respected he was. What do you wish people understood about the sacrifices that first responder families make?
We're giving our people to you. As soon as they walk out the door, that badge trumps our family, and not to make it sound like,
it's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah.
No,
I mean, even being a nurse, I feel like we're kind of putting ourselves out there, but
absolutely.
Firefighter is harm. I mean,
it is. And it's not even just like the potential for physical harm, but the things that they see and the things that they, the calls that they go on, like, there's never a call that's a good call.
That's a good point too. They're seeing a lot of trauma that most humans like us nurses would expect to see in the hospital. They're out in the field seeing it.
Right. And they're bringing it to you.
Yeah.
So they're first on scene and then bringing it to you. And so it's an emotional sacrifice. It's a physical potential for physical sacrifice. And, a lot of these guys in their retirement years, they end up with heart disease and cancer and that type thing. So, it's.
You think it's because of the stress?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that especially in America, like, firefighters are, kind of glamorized, you know, it's like, oh my gosh. And
Well, the nurses like them in the ER. I do know that.
yeah, little badge bunnies.
Badge bunnies. Wow. I have not heard that one.
Little badge bunnies. Yeah, no, it's, you know, so I think what gets lost in that is the true sacrifice that it is for them, but also for our families. And it is knowing that when they leave, like we're, you know, it's, they will put, you know, you before themselves. They'll put you before their wife, their kids, their, you know, that's the oath that they took when they put on the badge. So it's, you know, it's a quiet sacrifice, because I think especially since it's so glamorized and so like, oh, you know, and I hear people like, oh, well, they get to sleep on the job and they get to, you know, all this stuff. And it's like,
yeah, but think about the Palisades fire. I mean, I think about these guys, and I mean, these guys are away from their families, but some of them had their own homes at harm and had to leave their families behind. I mean, this happens all the time, you know, everywhere. But I always think about wives who are married to these firefighters that aren't coming home, and their own homes and families they got to worry about. Like that has to be, you know, were you ever, you mentioned a kind of a naivety before, a free spirit of marriage and being, when he left on these trips, did you ever really think about it?
No.
Really?
No.
You didn't think, oh, something bad could happen or really?
No. I never had a fear of him going to work. Never. It just, I think because in my mind, it's that, you know, it's not going to happen to us.
Yes.
You know, that happens to other people. That doesn't happen to, that's not going to happen to me. That's not going to happen to our marriage or my kids or my family. So yeah, no, I never, and you know, the funny thing was a couple of weeks before his accident, I remember talking to my neighbor across the street, and he was away at a fire, and, you know, they were like, oh, do you ever worry about him? I said, no, I don't worry about him. I'm like, nope,
wow.
I don't worry about him. And, you know, it just didn't seem real. You know, you hear about it, but you don't ever think that that's going to happen to you.
And here you are now.
And here I am.
Married to another firefighter, and I'm sure you think about it all the time.
All the time. That's that part of grief that just, it's changed who I am. And so now it's, you know, I don't feel the same about it.
Yeah. You know, in the hospital, you know, when we have a code blue, that's when somebody stops breathing or their heart stops. And, you know, one of the motivations I've been talking a lot about on this podcast and why I started it is I felt like, you know, even though those code blues happen kind of physically in the hospital, that we kind of all go through code reds or code blues, because your heart stops, your life stops. And, you know, I thought of you because I thought, here is someone who experienced her own code blue outside of the hospital. Not only did her husband's heart stop, but your life completely stopped. And as a nurse, I often say that, you know, healing is not always clinical, right? What have you learned about the kind of healing that can't be prescribed?
It's so individual. I've discovered, you know, since in the 9 years, I've met a lot of widows, fire widows, cancer widows, you know, and each, no matter what the loss is, no matter what the heartache is, even though we all lost our husbands, we all lost somebody, like our relationships were all different, which means the healing process is different, which means the grieving process is different. There's nothing specific that you can sit down with someone and say, do it this way, do it this way, do it this way, and it's going to work well. Like for my own healing, like my prescription per se was my faith. And that's not something that I know is in everybody's life or in everybody's line of healing through their grief. But for me, like that was what I held on to.
And what did that look like?
You know,
praying or
definitely praying, but whenever I like say like, oh, I would pray, like I imagine people are imagining me like in a corner, hands up, you know, like praying to God. But it was really just like, what the heck, God,
or crying out to God. Yeah.
Like it was so just intimate, but just like a conversation, you know, I was very open and honest with where I stood with God. Like I didn't understand it. I didn't think it was fair. Yeah. I didn't think that it was right. Like I was so faithful. Why would this happen to me, to my family? So allowing myself that honesty within my faith, I think is what really helped me go forward in my healing, because there's a ton of books and there's a ton of, you know, resources that are all great. And I utilized the grief recovery method.
Do you think that was a little, maybe those are useful, but maybe can be even a Band-Aid at times, or just kind of help at the time.
I think so. I think in reality, I think the best thing for healing through grief is just honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not honest, then you can't solve the problem. You can't resolve, what's going on. You can't figure out where the root is. It's, I would imagine it is like if you have someone come into the ER and they're bleeding out, the first thing you do is try to figure out where the bleed is coming from.
Yes.
Like you don't just walk in and say, well, put a bandage there and it'll be fine.
Yeah. Or just keep giving blood and hope that it doesn't keep bleeding out.
And we'll figure it out later. You have to get to the root of the problem to figure out where to stop the bleeding. And I think honesty is the biggest thing, whether it is in your faith, whether it is in therapy or counseling or just conversation with friends, you have to be honest about where you are with things because that's the only way you can actually get to the root of healing.
Yeah. Do you feel like your faith also, or were there people or something else that kind of became your life support, or, what would life support look like for someone grieving? Someone maybe that doesn't have faith, what do you think that would maybe look like? Relationships or?
I think a relationship, talking it through with somebody, whoever that is, if it's therapy, if it's a friend that you can trust, if it's a family member, to walk through it alone, you're not going to find your healing in that solitude.
Yeah.
Because to be able to even just express it, like that's so oddly enough, 9 months before Ryan's accident, I had gone through the grief recovery method, which I didn't even at the time, I was like, I'll take it just to take it because my friend told me I should, I didn't really.
Yeah. I literally just interviewed somebody last week or like a couple weeks ago.
I listened to it. Yeah. I listened to it.
Grief recovery specialist. I went through the course as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's different. Like she even talked about how it's different when you're going through it.
Right.
The grief recovery course before you've actually gone through such tragedy. I think we've all gone through stuff, but then when it actually comes, right?
When it came to it. And what was so interesting is I had all those tools. And so the tools where it actually helped me was to actually not become bitter towards people who didn't know what to say to me. So the tools helped me in that sense, which I thought looking back was so interesting because people don't know what to say when someone's grieving. And so some of the things that I've heard are just...
that was literally my next question is how can we show up better for someone who is grieving? What should we do or not do?
Just be there.
Yeah.
Just be there and just listen, because if the griever can talk and get it out, that's actually where the healing is. That's where if we stay in the solitude and it has nowhere to go, it just festers and it just takes over your whole body.
Yeah.
But if you have that person where you can sit and talk openly and honestly and say the things without judgment, that's where the healing is. So to show up for somebody and just sit there, and it's going to feel awkward to not say something.
Yeah, like you're not doing anything for them.
No, but and when we try to like make you feel better or like, but this, it negates
they're in a better
everything.
place and that whole, what are things we should not say?
They're in a better place. They're no longer suffering. You're young. You'll find new love. Comparison's a huge one. I had people that would compare losing their grandmother to losing my husband, which is sad. It's not to minimize
it's just
the
not
grandmother.
The same. Yeah.
But it's
Grandma
not the
was
same.
great, I'm sure, right? That wasn't your spouse.
It's just not the same, or I know exactly how you feel, things like that, which there's no harm in it. There's no bad intention behind it. But it's just to the person who's actually grieving, it just feels like you're not hearing what my heart is feeling right now.
Yeah.
And so the best thing is just, I'm here for you
quiet.
And I love you and I hate that you're going through this, but you're not going to have to go through it alone.
Yeah. I loved that you, and I'm sure it was, I don't know if it was therapeutic for you, but you did remain pretty public on your journey and the grief and the crying and your kids. Like, I think that was really helpful to see, and then I'm always amazed at the comments too. Like somebody, it's always just fascinating to me that what people say. I'm sure you go through it. I mean, you still post so much and it's so inspiring, and the things people say, I mean, I guess you got to just kind of.
Now I just brush it off. But at the beginning I was like, I cannot believe people.
You know what I love that you do and you've been doing lately sometimes? You put them on blast and you'll like screenshot and be like, guys, do better. Don't be this person. I'm going to pray for them. I'm like, I love that. I love that.
Yeah. It's a little petty, but at the
No,
same
but I
time,
think it makes a good point, and I feel like you seem like you are doing all these conferences and different speaking now to widows, and really become a voice for people who are grieving. Do you, if grief could teach one universal lesson, just one, what do you think that would be?
oh my gosh, just one?
Just one. I'm sure it could be potentially different for everybody, but one universal lesson that you think grief that teaches people.
We're all human. We all have stuff. We all have heartache. We all have something that we're going through. Our losses may look different. Our heartache may look different, but we all have it. We've all gone through it. We've all have a story to tell about it.
Yeah.
And so that alone should make us more gentle with people, because I know the saying, right? Hurt people. And, we can say that all we want, but in reality, like nobody's immune to it. Nobody's safe from it. And so if there's one thing that grief has taught me, it's compassion. Just, and even, like we joke about the people with the comments and, I put them on blast like that, and it's fun, but then I always like go back and delete it and block them. And I'm like, all right, I'll just get that off my page. I must get to them quick. Like, because I don't have the time to sit and talk with them and be like, what's going on? Like, what's happening?
Well, obviously they're probably going through their own thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And it does not excuse behavior at all. Like I don't care like how much someone's hurting. Like I hope I was never a jerk to someone during my grief, but I think grief is such a powerful reminder to just be compassionate, because there's not one person on this earth who has not felt some level of grief and heartache.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's helped you become a more empathetic, compassionate person?
Definitely.
And less, not that you were ever judgmental, but maybe less judgmental.
No, definitely. Oh, absolutely. Definitely I was. I would have probably been one of the first to judge a widow.
You think? Why?
Because I think we just naturally do. I think we just naturally have our thoughts. It doesn't come across as judgmental, but it comes through in when we say like, oh, I could never do that. I could never imagine.
Right.
I would never be able to
Or I would never be able to remarry
Yeah.
so quickly, or not as quick, whatever it is.
So it's not always a mean judgmental, but we put ourselves in someone else's shoes before we've ever walked in them. And so that's judgment. So 1,000,000% I would have absolutely judged widows for sure.
Well, we're human, right?
Right. Exactly.
That's just kind of what we do. You made the decision to write this book, Always Kiss Me Goodbye, and it's a really powerful title. But what did it mean to you then, and what does that mean to you now? Has it changed at all?
It's just intensified more. So the title is actually my current husband, he came up with the title of the book because my late husband, when we bought our home, he bought me a sign that says always kiss me goodbye. And he put it above the garage door, and it's cute. It's there. I probably never even notice it or look at it, but it's still there. Yeah. And so then my current husband, Michael, we were at dinner, and I'm telling him, I said, I cannot come up with a title for this book. Like, how do you encompass everything into one title? And he's like, well, what does that sign say above the door? No, always kiss me goodbye. And I was like,
my goodness,
that's what it is. Like that's exactly what it is, because Ryan bought it for me, because that was my thing. Like, we do not leave this house without saying, I love you, give me a kiss, all that sort of thing. And then now with Michael, which I hadn't even thought about this, but I had told him when we first met, like, that's just a rule that I have in this house. You don't leave without, a kiss goodbye and saying
something
I love
probably
you.
Even more profound now too. Like you said, it just intensified.
It just intensified it. And so now that's, but the kids, like you are not allowed to leave my house without saying I love you. I don't care if you're mad at me. Like I don't care. Wow. And so it's actually become in our household, like what's the last thing you said to someone? Like the last thing you said when you walked out the door, that could be the last thing that you said. So I think in our home anyways, it's definitely taken on more than just a kiss goodbye. Sure. It's when you walk out that door, you might not come back.
Is it because just the grief you've gone through, or do you have any regrets at all about what maybe you didn't say or said, or no? You just know how important it is.
I know how important it is, and the reality that it's possible.
Yeah. This photo. This is what I always, when I think of you and I think of Ryan, this photo of you saying goodbye to him when he got the call. Why did you put that photo there, and how did that picture happen in your book?
So that picture is the night that he left for the fire, and our daughter took that picture. It's literally our last moment together because he got in the car and that was it. He didn't come home. So that's truly our last moment together. And it's so precious. It feels like such a gift that I was given that.
I mean, how old was she at the time? 11?
12. She was 12.
For her to, I don't know, it just almost seems God-given, right? Like there was something bigger, something divine that was orchestrating this photo.
1,000,000%. It feels like a gift. And so I had that picture printed and it's still framed on my nightstand. Because I see that it is such a precious moment that we got to have, but the fact that it's frozen in time is just unbelievable to me. And even the fact that, the picture is so focused on Ryan, like you don't see my face, you don't like it. There's something so divine about it.
It really is. Yeah.
That it just speaks so much to me. And I just felt like it had to be in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Why did you decide to write it? Why go public and kind of open up that world of yours?
Well, as you said, like I've always shared publicly. I kind of used social media just as my diary as I was going through because writing is therapeutic for me. So I had this like collection of stuff, of just things I would share, or things I would, things that I was going through publicly, and the response that I was hearing from so many, especially widows, were just, oh, so this isn't the end of my story. There is light at the end of the tunnel, or I'm not going to feel this way forever. And so knowing that there was just a need, even just to be able to share a story of hope. And the way that again, it's a lot to do with my own relationship with God and my own faith, but there's just so many ways that I could see how God had prepared me for that, walked me through it, prepared me for the next phase of it. And so even to be able to just share my own personal experience, and even maybe if people need a reason to, why does she have a faith in God? Why does she trust God? Then that's why, so you can see how I was,
how it all
truly,
unfolded.
brought to today.
Was there a particular story in the book that was it the hardest to write?
You know what was the hardest to write was actually the second half of meeting Michael. Because sometimes I just can't believe it. Like sometimes I just was, it was so hard. It was
Michael
hard.
is your second husband.
My second husband,
yeah.
I feel like because the part, obviously I share about finding out when Ryan died and, that time period afterwards, and the loneliness I felt of like, am I ever going to be loved again? Is that part of my story? Like that part, I feel like I had written so much about, but it was trying to bring together this story about Michael, and then realizing like, oh my gosh, like I just can't believe.
Like, is this my life?
Right.
Like here was the first part of my life.
Right. Which felt easy to write.
Right. Because that would have been you for so long.
It had been me for so long. Yeah. And I felt like, Ryan's, you could just Google Ryan's name and find out everything that you needed about his accident.
You're creating a new identity, right?
Yeah.
You're not the same identity that you were before.
And and I think for me too, it was also the idea of like, I started the book with one husband. And then so I started the book with, how Ryan and I met in high school. And then I'm ending the book with how Michael and I met. And then the book ends on our wedding day, and I think just being able to look at that, it felt so surreal in that moment that's what actually made it difficult.
Wow.
Like,
was it the most healing part to write too? Or was there a different part of the book that maybe had been the most kind of healing part of you?
I think actually the most healing part for me was writing about like just the judgment that I had experienced, because I had never spoken publicly about. So that part it was easy enough for me to write because it was my experience, but I had never shared about what I was going through privately. And so that part was actually healing for me and scary because,
well, you're opening up yourself to more judgment.
Mhm.
That's actually what I, was going, to ask as well. I mean, you even spoke about like moving forward versus moving on. And, what is the difference to you?
Well, moving forward, you're bringing it with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you ever move on because as as I shared and even from your own things that you've gone through, like you don't move on from that.
Right.
It changes who you are. It changes how you think,
Yes.
how you act, how you speak.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes with you in that. So that's why, to say that I've moved on, that's impossible.
Well, it seems like, and I think that's where the judgment comes from people, right? Because they just use this thing of moving on because they don't understand the concept of like,
Right.
no, I'm moving forward. I'm not staying stuck.
Right.
Right. I'm
Right.
taking him with me.
Right.
So I'm not moving on from anything.
Right. No, Ryan's in everything that I do. And I always like say that what Michael loves about me now is a result of what Ryan and I shared. Like it's because of Ryan.
It's like it prepared you for this new chapter.
Absolutely. I tell Michael all the time, I said, I'm so glad I met you at 39 and not 29.
Right.
Because who I was at 29 is not.
I say that
this
to my husband
person.
too. I probably would have never even looked his way at that age. But yeah, that's so true. And your children, I always laugh because you always say, like, I don't think these kids, like, they don't even look like they're mine.
They don't.
When they go. I mean,
No,
they
look
look
like
like
yours.
Ryan.
Yeah.
They do look like mine. These blonde hair, blue-eyed. I mean,
yeah.
No, you're not. There's no brunette. There's no brown eyes, nothing.
No, there's not a hint of Mexican anywhere in them, like at all. No.
They're the most beautiful kids. How are they? How have they processed grief? And how do they feel about you writing this book, getting public about, their life?
They were fully supportive of it. Amanda actually, especially when I was writing about the funeral, because there's a lot that I don't remember because I was just in shock. So I would have to call her and, am I remembering this correctly? Or you walked me through, what did you remember about this day? And so they were actually really involved in the writing aspect of it because I wanted to make sure I was accurate with everything. But they, my gosh, like when I think about them at 11 and 12 years old, and I forget how young they were until I go back and look at pictures.
Oh, and those photos, yeah,
and
they're powerful.
They were babies, and so I forget that part because I see them now, and they're such amazing adults, and having walked through what they did, and even welcoming Michael in, like it was of course with anything rocky at first because it's so uncertain.
Sure,
like who is this person?
And probably protective of mom as well, right?
Absolutely. And protective of Ryan. Like Amanda, my daughter, she's 22 now. She, she really struggled with the idea that I didn't love her dad anymore.
Or maybe that you were going to forget him or,
Yeah. So it's been a process. It's been a journey, but that's also that part where the talking about it has to happen. Otherwise she could have been holding on to that for so long and I would have never known, so
so she was able to talk with you and talk, got their own help.
Yeah.
For those who are listening, who are kind of in the thick of it,
I'm so sorry.
In the thick of loss, what's something you wish someone had told you?
I wish someone would have said to me that it's okay to be in the thick of it and also to look forward to being out of it. Because especially with loss, you have a group of people that want you to just stay in the pain forever because to them, that means you loved that person or their person. So there's a fear of laughter and there's a fear of happiness and there's a fear of enjoying life again. Because,
even guilt?
Because it's that like, oh, wait, does that mean I don't love him anymore? Does that mean I don't miss him anymore? So I wish I would have been given permission that that's going to happen and that's okay.
Right.
Because I do remember the first time that I genuinely felt like happy and I was crying less.
Like I'm going to be okay.
And it was way before I met Michael. And I just remember like stopping in that moment and being like, oh wait, I don't know if I can feel that. I don't know if I'm allowed to feel that because then you also had this group of people that didn't want me to, that's not fair for me to say. I shouldn't say they didn't want me to, but
well, I think it's a mirror. We're mirrors, right?
Yeah.
It kind of makes it, because they're free to grieve in the way that they need to, right? And do you find that that came more from maybe from family or just people, I know you and I met in kind of a church environment. Or do you feel like it was more a family or church or just friends?
I think,
People maybe who were the closest to him?
yeah, I think family, but no one ever said it to me. Like it
Mm,
wasn't anything, it was my own projection of what they
I
are
see.
probably thinking. And that's where I think I wish someone would have just said to me, like, we want you to be happy
Mm.
because
Maybe if they felt it, they just never
right,
expressed it. Oh,
right. So I was holding on to the idea that maybe they're not going to be, they don't want
Yeah.
me to be happy. No one ever said that to
Sure.
me, but it was something that I carried because
Yeah.
it was my own guilt that I had.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagined that that's probably what their guilt, or their feeling was
Mm-hmm.
towards me. So
Isn't it interesting that
it's
we don't talk about it, though?
right. Yeah.
Like we don't just come out and say, "How do you feel about
Mm-mm.
me moving on, or me
No, so
moving forward,
scary.
or
Yeah.
me meeting someone
Yeah.
else?"
Or just being happy.
Yeah.
Like just being happy.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge. I
Yeah.
wish someone would have said that it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay to be
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, moving forward and, after you lost Ryan, you fell in love again. And not only fell in love again with another
I
firefighter.
know.
I mean, that takes courage.
I did not want to marry. I did not want to be with a firefighter. I said several times to several people, I will never be with another firefighter. And look,
And
here we
you
are.
are. And just briefly tell us, how did that happen? I mean, how in the world do you, of all the people in the world, you
I
met
know.
another one?
Right? I know exactly. I was at an event. It was a firefighter event, a retreat, and I was there speaking. And he was there attending. And the joke was that I was going to meet my future husband there. And that's when I was like, absolutely
I mean,
not.
what kind of retreat was this?
It was-
Ladies, what kind of retreat was this? Where are the firefighters gathering?
They're up at Hume Lake. It was a Christian retreat up at Hume Lake Christian camp. And so I had been invited to come and speak to the women about having hope after tragedy.
Wow.
And Michael was there as an attendee. So yeah, we literally crossed paths and
Well, let's hold on. But
Okay.
also, isn't he? He's not even from the United.
No,
Where
he's
is he
not.
from?
Ireland. He's from Northern Ireland.
How did a man, a firefighter from Northern Ireland, Lord, I can't even talk. Northern Ireland, end up at Hume Lake? Had he gone through his own tragedy?
No. So the group that put it on is called Firefighters for Christ, and it's an
I see. So
international organization.
The Christian event.
Mhm.
I see.
Yeah. So they had, their own
Wow.
chapters, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, in Northern Ireland. But every year they are part of this firefighter retreat at Hume Lake. And so he signed up to go and was there. And yeah,
Wow.
so wild.
Did you feel guilt or judgment, from yourself or for others for finding love again in what some maybe would think so soon? Because they always say, "Oh, you need to give
I
yourself."
know.
There's all these. Again, it's the stages of grief, and no, you should wait this year this long. That's what I love about you and your story is that I feel like you kind of broke free from the, I guess, kind of grief widow rules of the
Yeah.
world, right? Of
Yeah.
no, you should literally wait like X amount of days, years, months before you move on. But it seemed just so different. Did you feel that? Did you feel judgment? Did you feel guilt?
Well, there's definitely judgment. Because I share everything with social media, there are so many people who were like, "Oh, I feel so sad for Ryan," and I was like, "Really?
Mm-hmm.
So he's dead? You know that, right?" Like, I mean, I was just like, "How do you feel sad for him?" And that's the group of people that would be like, I just would rather see you alone and sad for the rest of your
Yeah.
life rather than having someone come in and love you and
Yes.
carry on what Ryan didn't get to finish. But I very quickly, because I actually never felt guilt, which is how I knew it was right. Like there was I had
Like no second guessing.
no,
Yeah.
I had,
Yeah.
but I hadn't felt that before that.
Mm-hmm.
So prior to meeting Michael, like I had I wore my wedding ring for 2.5 years because I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for it. And then one day I was just like, well, I guess I should just let the world know I'm not married anymore. And I met Michael a week later, literally after taking off my wedding ring.
So you
Michael and
hadn't
I
been
met.
dating. You
No.
hadn't even
No.
looked. Nothing.
Nothing. I had no desire because I genuinely was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I didn't feel it. And I think that's when I do have a lot of widows that will ask me like, how do you know when you're ready? How do you know? Well, when you don't feel that anywhere in your gut, anywhere in your spirit, you don't feel a sense of like, oh, I don't know if I should be doing this. Like that's your first clue that you're not ready yet. And that's not for anybody to say, whether it's 6 months or 6 years or maybe never, or
no one,
it's so individual.
There's no rules.
No, there's no rules.
What have you learned about, I feel like this is the epitome kind of your life. What have you learned about the heart's capacity to feel grief and joy all at the same time?
I've learned that the heart is so complex. It holds so many emotions, but also so much love. And so the way I explained it to my daughter, because she wasn't understanding that I could love Michael and her dad at the same time. And I said,
like,
well,
both can be true.
Both can be true. And I told her, I said, when I was pregnant with your brother, I couldn't even imagine that I was going to love this baby as much as I loved you, because you were my firstborn. And, who's going to be better than your firstborn?
Baby girl, yeah.
Right. And, and I said, but the second he was born, I don't know what happens or how it happens, but it was like, just, I fell in love with your brother, and it's equal, but not the same. It doesn't take away love, that's already was there in existence with her, just to give him love. So the heart's ability to expand is, I don't even think that we can really comprehend it, because I have space for both Michael and Ryan in two different capacities. It doesn't take away from Ryan at all, and it never will, because that love that I had with Ryan is for who I was when Ryan was alive. But the way that Michael loves me and the love I have for Michael is for who I am today. Like I'm two different people. Like I'm two totally different people. And so the heart's ability to expand in that way, and there's just enough to give out to everybody in every direction. I can't comprehend it.
I think that's why people get judgmental, is because they can't comprehend that, because they've not experienced it. And something I love about Michael, your husband now, is that he's just so supportive. I'll watch how you talk about the pennies you find and think that's love notes from heaven, from Ryan, and how he'll say, babe, we just want to honor Ryan. I'm always amazed at how supportive he is.
He is phenomenal at holding my widowhood. Phenomenal. And he's so protective of Ryan's memory. There's
Even
not a lot of men who
right?
can do that. Oh, very much. Yeah. There's I know that there's not a lot of men out there who could do what he does. But it was definitely one of my requests. If I was going to have a future husband, I was like, he has to not only let me continue loving Ryan, but honor him with me. And he
not feel threatened.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No.
If Ryan could see, or if he does see, the life that you've built now, what do you think he would say?
It's so unfair to ask a question like that. So I have fake lashes so my mascara doesn't run. It sounds so cliche to say, I think he would be so proud. Because I know he would be, for sure. I know he would be so proud of the kids for walking through what they did at such a young age and not lose their minds over it. I think he would be shocked at the lifestyle that I have now, because we travel so much, going back and forth between here and Ireland. Like, he was very much a homebody. I think he would be like, who is that? Like,
who are you?
Where is she going again? But I think more than anything, I think he would just be so happy.
Yeah. You've shared with me, we've talked in the back years ago, even when I was going through my divorce, you were one of the very few people at church that loved and supported me. And you hadn't even experienced this tragedy yet. And I feel like there was something in you that just understood that, I don't know, you really held space for me. You didn't judge me for what I was going through. And you shared things, about even your own marriage. And I don't know, I just have I'm sure it warms your heart too, but just to think that despite all the challenges that maybe you and Ryan had, or just a young couple, young parents, to see you, this grown woman now, really living the life that you guys dreamed of, that has to make you happy. And for your kids not to be bitter, for your kids not to have resentment, to me, that's what you and him instilled in these kids. That doesn't just happen. It almost feels like Ryan's gift he left you was for your children to support and love the man that you chose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a really, intense thing to think about. But, I just want to thank you for being that for me when nobody was there. You were able to, be not judgmental at all. I felt so seen by you. And for anyone who is listening who feels like their story has ended, and what would you tell them about writing a new chapter?
Your story's not even close to being done yet. I always say as long as your heart is beating, your story's not done. It's not over yet. It feels like it. I think it's literally we're living books.
Yeah.
We all have a beginning.
Yeah. You've been resuscitated.
Right?
Your spiritual
Exactly.
defibrillator.
Exactly. We all have a story.
Mhm.
And even when you're in the thick of it and it feels like you're just never going to get out of this, it's never going to get better. I can't imagine a different life. I can't imagine that I'm ever going to make it through this. And it's just not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true. We all have it. We've all had to go through it. And there's so many people that you could look at or talk to, and they'll tell you their stories, of coming through to the other side. And that's why we all have different stories to tell, because there's somebody out there who needs to hear your specific story. And when you start talking to people and asking people about their life, or, people start sharing about their lives, then that's when you see that your life is still being written.
Yeah.
It's still happening.
It's still chapters.
Yeah.
There's still chapters to be written.
Absolutely.
It's time for like a part two on this.
Maybe.
Well, that's why I wanted to have you on, because I just felt in my gut that somebody needed to hear this story, that if you're experiencing that code blue outside of the hospital, that there is a new chapter, there's a new story.
Absolutely.
You're living proof, and to not listen to you really did go against the grain. I witnessed the judgment. I witnessed when you were moving on and people had things to say, and you had close friends even that were at the moment not supportive. And I thought she'll probably, just back off and listen, just because that's what we were kind of taught to do.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't. You really stayed the course, and like, I'm going to do what I really feel is right. And it's really proven, that you knew what was right for you at the end of the day. You knew. Your heart told you.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
We all have that ability, though.
We do.
We just let other people drown it out.
Yeah.
But if we really pay attention to what we're feeling, or what feels right or what doesn't feel right, if we really paid attention to it and blocked out the other voices.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a lesson I need, because doing podcasts or just the judgment with my daughter, I think about all of those things. So I got to drown out the noise. Do what I know is right. So thank you for coming here and being with me. I did not want to do this on a Zoom. We had to do this in person.
I'm so glad.
Yes. And if you could tell people where to find your book, Always Kiss Me Goodbye by Jennifer Osler-Bolton.
Thank you. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Beautiful. There. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're so inspiring to me, and I love you so much.
I love you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining Call the Nurse. I hope this dose of life support was as healing for you as it was for me, and I will see you next shift. Thanks for listening to Call the Nurse. I'm Mindie, navigating life one shift, one story, one breath at a time. If today's episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who just might need a little life support. Until next time, breathe deeply and heal gently, and I'll see you next shift.